guys, and welcome back to another half term. I hope you all had a wonderful week off and you managed to relax. And yeah, let's get started. Let's get ready for a new half term and for a new topic. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about data versus information. If you are the type that actually checks the specification and your book, this is topic 3.1 and 3.2. Okay, so this is going to be two lessons, and the first one is all about the difference between data and information, and then the second one will be about data types, etc. Okay, so before we start, let's see if you have any idea of what is data and what is information. So I have here two sets of information slash data, and I want you to try to understand what's the difference between them. Okay, so the first one, there's some numbers, there's a name, and letters and numbers, and on the next set of information slash data, you have numbers, but then you have birthday, you have word, but then you have first name, and then you have letters and numbers, and you have postcode. So what is the difference between these two sets? Can you actually say what is what? Can you put a context in each set? Have a think about it, write a few lines, and then we will at the end, when I'm explaining the task that I want you to do, hopefully after tell you what's information, what's is data, you will have an understanding of what is what. Okay, great. Now, what is data then? So data are raw facts and figures that on their own have no meaning. Okay, so this could be text, numbers, symbols, but the general idea of data is that it doesn't really mean anything on their own. Okay, so you don't really know the meaning because there's nothing for you to rely on. So it is literally the same as me saying to you a or water or light. I mean, it doesn't, you know what the words are, you know what the letter is, but you don't really know the meaning of it because there is none. Okay, and thinking about the way the data is to be used and who will be using it, okay, will help you determine the meaning of that data, and it will help you as well determine which way you should be presenting that data. Okay, so that is quite important. So it's important to realize that no, data is not useless, okay, but on its own is actually doesn't really have a meaning. All right, perfect. Now, on the other hand, information is the data that has been processed, okay? So you give meaning, you give context to that data, so that data means something. So in here, in this particular example, you have raw data, which is yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes. The context is responses to the Mark research question, would you buy brand X at price Y? And the information, so once you process that, is if you would buy it or not. But that information now, that yes, yes, no, no, has a meaning because you know what that represents. And with that, you can create a chart, you can create a table so that you visually can see that data, okay? Which now obviously became information. Okay. Information has you can say it's almost like an equation, all right? So it needs to have data, plus it can have structure or context or meaning or all of that, okay? And structure is how the data is being organized. The context is the circumstances in which the data is used. The meaning is the data in the correct structure and placed with context, okay? So without that, without data per structure, data context, data meaning, don't really, data is information doesn't really exist, okay? And obviously, once you have information, you can then have knowledge, which is the application of the information to a particular solution, all right? So if you think about every single disease or every single study. Let's not talk about the pandemic. We are a little bit, bombarded with pandemic in the news. So let's think about something else. Every study that is present to you, and that study could be simple, a simple study as how many, how many, or what is the percentage of females or males that study computer science in the future. Okay, a simple study. That study starts with data that then is put in a context that becomes information, and that information then becomes your knowledge. Okay, so everything you learn in school, everything that I'm saying to you now, started with data, which was the words that I'm saying, and then the context, which is obviously the explanation. Okay, that I'm putting all of this in the context and telling you that the topic that we're talking about is data information is a context as well, has a meaning, it has a structure. And then after that, you now have an application, so you can absorb this information and that will become knowledge. Okay, so that is crucial when we are learning the difference between data and information. So it is very, very important that you understand that data has no meaning on its own. With meaning, context, or structure will become information, and that information, when it's applied, becomes knowledge. Okay? Real. Here's an example. So the data here, the set of numbers and then letters and then more numbers, it doesn't really mean anything. And then you say, or you put some structure, which you're saying that the structure of that data looks like a date. And then you say the next line are numbers. After that, first two letters, type of garment, second two letters are color, and last two letters are size. And then scaled selected from a scale of 1 to 4. So if you ignore the context and the meaning of this, actually this data now, because it has structure, it became information. You kind of know what that data is. Okay, if you add context, okay, and you say that that is represents the UK date, the numbers are in Celsius, that the third line is the shop stock code, and the last one is a rating, that makes a lot more sense. And then you add meaning, okay? So booking a hotel, a shirt that you want to buy, the temperature, or a film, and all of this will become knowledge, because that information now has an application and now you have knowledge. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I mean, the idea and the difference between data and information is so minimal but so crucial if you think about it. It's all about context, so it's all about interpretation, it's all about understanding that piece of information in the right place. If you think about it, this happens quite often in the news, yeah, when we see those big headings and we think, oh my god, what happened? And then we read the whole news article and we think, oh, actually doesn't really mean what I thought it did, because that line doesn't really have a context yet or a structure or a meaning, so it's just data. Okay, but because we are bombarded with data every day, we kind of tend to interpret data in different ways. Sometimes we are actually interpreting that data in a wrong way, which means we get wrong information. Okay, so sometimes we hear people commenting about a heading on a news, and then you think, wait, why are you saying that? That doesn't make any sense, because if you read the news, it's completely different to what the heading was telling you. So the heading is misleading. But why is it misleading? Because we are bombarded with data that we subconsciously we are actually adding context and meaning to that data without knowing. All right, okay, so your first task is you have a fish shop, holiday website, TV program, and one that you want to choose. I want you to get some data for each one of them: structure, context, and meaning. So very similar to the example. Yeah, and after that, I would want you to answer the following questions. So give a definition of information, give a definition of data, what is meant by structure, context, and meaning, what is the difference between data and information, can data make sense without structure? Okay, so now if we go back to that starter, I hope it makes a little bit more sense that one set was data and the other one was information. And the difference is just that I gave you a little bit more context in one of them, which made that data have context, which means that it became information. So that's it for today. This is the difference between data and information. I hope you understand. If you have any questions, please ask your teacher, message on Show My Homework, or obviously email. Please make sure that you answer all of these questions and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye. Hello and welcome to another video. So last video we talked about data versus information. What was data, what was information, what was knowledge. And today we're going to be talking about data types and data representation. So before we get into our video, I would like you to do a little starter. And the starter is all about the different types of data that you receive during the day. So create a mind map of the sources from which you receive information on a typical school day and the sources from which you receive information on a day over the weekend. So, for example, in the school day, do you receive information through video, through text, to number, charts, etc.? Okay, have a little mind map, have a think on a normal day, how do you get information and data, and on the school day, how do you get data and information? All right, perfect. Okay, so quick recap: data, information, and knowledge. As you can see, data is, the numbers that you have there, 230106. If I tell you that those, numbers are a birthday, and I tell you specifically they're John's and Matilda's birthday, that is already information because I gave it a meaning and a context for those numbers. And then if I obviously tell you that they were born the same day, that is knowledge because I applied that information in a particular scenario. I could even say that they are twins, for example. Okay, so data, information, and knowledge, that is how they look. Awesome. Today, obviously, we're going to focus on data types, and data types are a way that we have to put data in different categories. Okay, and different data types dictate what kind of operation can we do with the data. So it's almost like we are validating that data when we are using a data type. And obviously, different data types are selected depending on how you want to use that data, okay, and whatever you want to represent, right? So the validation that I mean here is, when you say that you want a data type that is a date, okay, and you then use a word, that's not going to fit, right? Because a word is not a date, so a text is not a date. So that is what I mean by validation. All right, perfect. Okay, so the most common data types are, as I said before, short text or text, alphanumeric, okay, date, time, object, boolean, numeric, and limited choice. So in terms of text, we have kind of two types. We have the short text or long text. The short one is up to 255 characters, and the long one is up to 1 GB. As you can see, short text and long text and alphanumeric, they're all kind of in the same bucket because text normally accept numbers and symbols. So alphanumeric is when you accept numbers and letters, okay? So obviously when you're using this data type text, you can accept numbers and letters. You can say, or you could differentiate saying, well, text is only letters and alphanumeric is letters and numbers, okay? And then we have different types of numeric, for example, integer, real, and currency. So an integer is a whole number. A real is any number that we can represent. That could be a decimal number, so that has like 1 point something. That could be a currency, okay, so related with obviously money. And that could be a whole number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Date and time, they represent literally date and time. So, the 23rd of February 2021, or in terms of time, 10 10 a.m. Okay. Then we have our boolean, which is our yes no. So it's when you say that when you are accepting only, it's like two choices only, so two possible values: yes, no, true, false, male, female. Okay. So if you think about it, when you ask a question like, are you happy? It's a yes or no answer. Is the motorway open? Yes or no answer. All right. Um, Obviously, when we are talking about integers, the whole number, yeah, it's literally when there's no like dot. So 24, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, things like that. All right. So just to clarify that. Um, in terms of your auto number, so your auto number is a number that starts in 1 and you will count up automatically. Okay, so this is obviously, for example, when you're using your database and you want to have a primary key, so that little key in your database that requires a number that is always unique, which means that you want an auto number because you want something that is always counting up. So it's never going to be repeated. And then you have a multiple choice, okay, where you can select different options. All right. So, for example, if I want a data type lookup wizard for my ice cream flavor, yeah, it's nice to have the options that I can select other than someone typing what ice cream flavor they want, because you might not have that ice cream flavor, okay, in your shop. I'm just giving an example of obviously a shop. So yeah. Okay. So these are the most important ones, as I said, and you use them every day. Now, if you think about it, you obviously can understand, hopefully, a little bit better why it's so important to say which type the data is, because I don't want to, okay, be talking about currency and then use a real number, and that not a new user not understanding that I'm talking about euros or pounds. I don't want to be giving the user only the option of saying true, false, yes, no, male, female, but then telling them they can write a text, because if I allow you to write a text, you can put whatever you want. Okay. So I'm not limiting you to say yes, no as I wish. All right. Awesome. Data representation is as well a different way of representing data. Now, you might be thinking, okay, how does this link with data types? Well, because the way that we represent data, it's quite has similarities with the different data types. So, for example, we can represent data as numbers, text, graphic, animated, graphics, audio, video, braille, and the way that we will represent this data will have its advantage and its disadvantage. Okay, and obviously thinking about the way that the data is to be used and how we'll be using will help you choose which way is the best way to represent. So very similar way of thinking to the data types, okay? Because obviously, when you're selecting your data type, you might need to represent that data, and you are selecting a particular data type that will be useful for you to then represent in the future, okay? To show that particular piece of data. So let me just give you very quickly some advantage and disadvantage on a few of the data representation. So, for example, text is clear to understand, is detailed. Some of the disadvantage is the fact that you need to read the text, and you need to understand it. I know. Funny, because I just said it was clear to understand. But what I mean is, if you don't really understand the language, text is quite useless, right? So obviously that is a massive disadvantage. It can be confusing as well, because you might need misunderstand the text, and you might obviously take your own approach on the meaning of that particular text, which is not ideal. All right. Another thing is, for example, if we're talking about video, so video are visual formats of information, and often, they have audio. they are more engaging, they're easy to follow than reading a lot of text. So obviously that is a massive advantage. But on the other hand, they can be too large and it could be hard to storage. So when we record this video to you, you have to download the videos. You have to make sure they have space in your computer to be able to watch the videos, which is not ideal. Okay. Another type, for example, braille text. Well, it's amazing and awesome for visual impaired users, okay? But not many people will use that, all right? Which is a downside, because if not many people use it, then there is not maybe a higher demand, or people tend not try to use it because they don't know how to use it, okay? Um, Another one could be graphics. So graphics is a wonderful way of representing numbers. So if you think about it, you can have graphics as an image, which obviously will represent words. A picture, it's way better than 1,000 words. If I don't understand the language, I can still see the picture and understand the meaning of it. Okay, but graphics as well could be a chart or a table or a spreadsheet, which is very helpful to represent numbers. Numbers are a wonderful way of representing data as well, because everyone understands them. Okay, again, there's no linguistic barrier in there, which is awesome, but they can get very confusing. So all of this data representation, all of them have advantage and disadvantage, all right? And it's very important at the end of the day that when you're choosing how you're going to represent the data and the data type, that you actually think about your audience, that you think about what you want your user to do with that data. Okay, if you're doing a form, a questionnaire, you want to make sure that the data types are absolutely correct. And then once that form and questionnaire is done, you want to use the perfect data representation method to display your findings. Okay, so all of this, okay, started with data, information, knowledge, but how do we represent that data to gain that information and then gain that further knowledge? All right, so I've been talking for a while now, and that is literally it in regards to data types and data representation. And now I'm going to ask you to do a few tasks to finish our beautiful, amazing session slash lesson. Okay, so your tasks for today are to create a mind map and knowledge organizer about data, information, knowledge, data types, and data representation, and answering these 4 questions that you have here. And then I would like you as well to, within the given context, give an example of how each data type could be used in a school, supermarket, and in a tech company like Google. Okay. Any questions that you might have, please ask me or any of your teachers. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Please like and subscribe to the channel so that you can get updates as the videos are uploaded.